Well, hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. Gonna record Mike in the Midwest this morning to get it ahead of the game because Sunday I will be busy and this way we don't miss the show like last week. So here we go. Let me see if I can do something real quick. Let's see here. Hang on one second. I just got a good idea. Last minute idea. One second. We'll start. Share screen, share screen. Okay, good. Okay. There. Do 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 do. Okay. 266. Welcome to episode 266 of Mike in the Midwest, our mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast, which you can always find and stream at beourguestpodcast.com or any app where you download fine podcasts, even terrible podcasts. We're on all of them. I hope you're having a great week. I know that this one is coming out a bit early here on a Thursday, but first of all, I wanted to give you a sincere apology because we did not have a show last Sunday. I was under the weather and in the hospital last Sunday, so we did not get a chance to get out the show. I apologize for that. We did not have a live call-in show Sunday night either, but we did make sure to get home in time to get the regular 3 shows that we always make sure that we have. So I hope you enjoyed Wednesday's show. We'll have a Friday show. It'll be the Disney Park Stock Watch. We had fun with that. So you get your 3 shows, and we'll be back on track with a live call-in show this Sunday night, God willing. And just wanted to get this show out early because this is going to be a super busy weekend coming up again. So this is going to be this Sunday show a couple of days ahead of time because the way the schedule's looking tomorrow, I have a lot going on. We have a Friday night football game that's an away game. It's going to be a late game. We're going to get home super late Friday night. Saturday morning, we have a Mizzou game, of course, against Alabama. Probably the biggest football game we've had in maybe 30 or 40 years at Mizzou. Of course, it's an 11 o'clock a.m. kick. We live 2 hours away. The traffic is going to be insane. We're going to have to leave at about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning to get out there. Be a great game. Hopefully, it'll be a lot of fun. Get back. It's going to be insanity. So that'll be wild. Then have to work the rest of the day when I get home. Sunday will be crazy. So I wanted to make sure in all this insanity that I got the show out early, just in case. So here is Sunday's show on a Thursday. So you have it. So we get to talk. We get to connect. We have this connection just in case. I thought, well, I have 30 minutes. Let's have a show. Let's connect because you guys deserve your show. And I feel terrible about missing it last week. I was like, oh, but trust me, I hardly remember last Sunday. You would have not understood. You would have not wanted to hear any Mike in the Midwest last Sunday. I didn't even get to watch the Sunday night football game. I just remember I was getting ready to watch it. I remember that I closed my eyes and then it was 11:30. That's all at night and the game was over. And I told the nurse, I said, is the football game over? She said yes. I was like, oh, I missed it. It was the Bills and the Patriots, I think. And I was like, dang, I want to see that game. She's like, yeah, it was a good game. I said, dang. Oh, well. But anyway, so that's what happened. So just so I always kind of fill you on what's going on around here. So basically what happened was it's the same thing that I had. I've been having this thing, and as a science person, I'm always trying to figure out what's going on, and we still don't really know. It was the exact same thing that happened to me back in April at Easter time. I got out of the hospital on Easter Sunday last time I was in the hospital for exactly about the same thing, about 3 days, where I had this blockage in my small intestine, where there's a thickening in there that they're seeing, and they run a tube up your nose, which is not pleasant, and somehow it drains your stomach, and then it kind of relaxes your small intestine, and it lets all the air out and all that stuff, and it kind of relaxes it after a couple of days, and then I guess they let you go home. So the next step, the next course of action is I have to now swallow a pill. This horse pill, this is a huge pill where it will have a camera in it that'll take over 1,000 pictures as it travels. I'm learning all about I feel like I'm going back to like sixth grade science or eighth grade science, physiology and all this. Like, it's going to travel these like 17 feet of your small intestine. It's going to take over 1,000 pictures as it travels and traverses throughout the digestive system and all throughout your body. And it's going to be hooked up to a radio transmitter that you carry for a few days, and take all that telemetry, and then they'll be able to see what's going on as it passes through that area where it's apparently thickening, so they can see, like, is it thickening, is it what part is thickening. I don't know, that's kind of what they told me. I was in and out, but that's the next step. But the first step to do that, I found out, and I thought about this question. This is me, right? When you're laying in the hospital for like 3 days, 2.5 days, I remember one night it was like 2:30 in the morning. You're like sleeping on and off the whole time because you can't do anything. And I'm laying there like 2:30 in the morning. I'm thinking, well, here's the thing. Okay, so telling me this is gonna be like this big pill, and it's gonna have a camera in it. I'm like, I'm not real cool on swallowing like a Wi-Fi camera. Okay, and I know, like, they tell you like you're gonna pass this thing, right? I mean, it's gonna, it'll be fine. You're cool with it. Like it'll be good. Not gonna get any more, uh, you know, uh, graphic than that, but it'll be, come out. But the thing is, I'm thinking, you're going to be having a camera inside you, like that. That's wild. That's sci-fi. But then I got to thinking, see, you got to think about these things when you're laying in a bed there all by yourself and just in a room, 2:30 in the morning. I was like, I'm in a hospital though for a blockage. Like, I'm in here because like there's a jam in my they're trying to figure out why I'm getting like jammed up, like in there somewhere in this 17 feet. It's not like it's like it's 18 inches where there's a jam, maybe 12 inches, like it's a little bit small area where they could probably figure this out rather easily. If there's like, I don't know, like feet and feet of small intestine, I can't remember how many feet it was, but I thought she said 17. I can't remember. But if it's like that much of all this, in and out and tangling and back and forth, I'm like, but if there's a jam, I'm thinking this camera is not going to make it through there at some point. It's going to get jammed too. Like, is this not going to be caught? Like, I'm thinking like traffic jams, right? I'm like, this thing's going to be like the AT Wheeler coming into the big old traffic jam on the highway. Like, this thing is definitely not going to make it through like a little Volkswagen Bug. So I got thinking about that. I'm like, it's a bad idea. Like, and I'm not the doctor. I'm just the dorky podcaster, travel agent guy. I'm just thinking common sense is telling me this isn't going to be a good idea. But who am I to know? Right. I mean, this thing has to be pretty substantial if it's a Wi-Fi camera. I'm looking at my Wi-Fi camera here that we use. It's not a Wi-Fi camera, it's a wire camera. But, shout out Dr. Kai, who helped us out with this. It's the best camera in the world at Logitech. I don't know. I just thought, wow, I don't know how this is going to work. So anyway, the next morning, all these specialists come in, right? The GI doctor, he's like super, you can tell he's super smart. Like, he's like, I guess he's a surgeon. So he comes in, talks to me with like another like nurse that was his assistant, super smart. So they're explaining all this stuff that's really over my head, but I trust them. And they're explaining all these procedures, and they're talking about this camera and how it all works and all this. And I'm just like, wow, that's amazing. Like, it's sci-fi. Like, we live in the future that they could even put a camera in a pill that you swallow, and it has this telemetry, and they can take, and they can see it, because basically it's like endoscopy and like a colonoscopy, but it's like for places that they can't reach either way. Like it's the in between because it goes through the entire thing, right? But he says, I bet you thought, and he must have read my face. It was so funny because he says, I bet you thought, what happens if that thing gets stuck? And I was like, you know what? That was my nightmare last night. I said, I did think that, doctor. I said, I was thinking about that because I have a blockage. What if that thing gets stuck? I was like, because I think that could be trouble. I was just thinking, you know what? I'm in here for a blockage, and you're telling me this is a big pill. He's like, somebody described it. The nurse said it's a horse pill. I said, and it's going to have electronics in it. I said, I've never seen one of these things. I said, but it sounds like it's going to be a big pill with electronics in it. And I said, for the life of me, I think it's going to get stuck. And I said, I just really don't want electronics stuck in my belly. He's like, you're a smart guy to think about that. He's like, most people don't think about that. He's like, what we do first is we have, and he gave it like a scientific name. I don't know, can't remember what the scientific name is, but it's like a practice pill. And what it is, it's the same size, but it doesn't have any of the electronics in it, and it dissolves like after 3 days. And so you put it in and you swallow it, and then it goes, it does its thing, but it's supposed to just travel. And they know if it like makes it all, if it completes the journey, I guess. But you have to go back 3 days later and get an X-ray, and I guess to see if it's like if it's still there or not. And if it's not, like if it gets jammed in, it self dissolves. So that's a great. I was like, that's a great idea that it would just dissolve because there's no guts to it. There's no electronics. There's no camera. There's no nothing like that. It's a practice run. I was like, that's a great idea. That because if that can make it through and it's the exact same size, now we're thinking. Now we're thinking. We're not putting the 18 wheeler in there with the cargo like as a first run. Somebody, but I bet you the first time somebody put that thing in there as a first run, it got stuck and they had to go in and get it. So I was like, okay, now we have a plan. So that's good. So anyway, that's the next step to kind of see what's going on. I don't know. I just like to think that we're living in the future. I always talk about technology on here and how things have progressed. That is science fiction. That is science fiction. I'm not real cool about this all happening. I still think I'm 18 and none of this should be happening, but it is what it is. And I don't ever want to get the tube up the nose thing anymore. That is the most unpleasant procedure you've ever had to have in your life. And I've had that twice in the last 6 months. So if I never have to have that again, I'm all about it. So if it means swallowing a pill, that's an easy thing to do, and find out what's going on there. So that should be happening hopefully next week, and get that all taken care of and make this all swimmingly. So that's why I missed the show last week, and I apologize for that, but we will be back on track. And that's why this one's a little bit early, because I honestly, I've still been pretty tired since getting home. I got home on Tuesday. Still not feeling super like right. I got like really bad migraines when I got in there because they give me all the pain medication and all that. So I got messed up, but going to try to get back into running a little bit tomorrow, on Friday, taking Saturday off because we're going to the football game, kind of getting back into my routine, hopefully on Sunday, and back to my routine, hopefully next week a little bit. But the problem is when you do this test, the 3 days, the real pill is in your system, taking all the pictures, you cannot exercise because you're hooked up to like a radio pack that's taking the telemetry from the camera. And I guess they don't want you juggling around with I guess it'll blur the pictures if you're running or jogging or whatever. So, and you can't eat the day before. That's an issue. That's an issue for me, but what are you going to do? Anyway. Yeah, and that was a huge issue in the hospital, man. I couldn't eat in there either. They were so excited. You can have clear Jello. I'm like, whoop-dee-doo, clear Jello. Thank you. You're great. Anyway, I know I'm complaining. I should stop. This is Mike in the Midwest Complaining edition. But I'm here. I'm healthy, and I'm glad we're back. And I'm about to sneeze. Allergies. I don't know where you are, but in the Midwest, the mold count has been over 100,000 here. And yeah, it's been rough. So it's a wonderful time. Yes. I mean, it's football season. It's wonderful. It's the fall. Today, the high is going to be 73. Got to love that. But the allergies are horrible, and my gut decided to rebel. But other than that, we're doing great. And I hope you're doing wonderful too. I love you guys. I love you guys. And I'll tell you what, I got so many kind messages on social media that I just want to reach out and hug you guys. And I wanted to be there for the show, and I feel bad, but I did make it back. I remember telling the doctor, this was like Dr. Jody, I think. She was like the on-call surgeon. They had to come around and make the rounds, and she kind of made the final call whether I could leave or not. And I told her, I said, look, this was like on Sunday night or something. I said, look, I do a pie. She's like, why are you so in a hurry to get out of here? I said, you don't understand. I have a streak. I have not missed a regular podcast, and I don't count the Sunday night podcast as like regular podcast. Like I do love those, but those aren't, I consider Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's the ones we've been doing since forever. I said, I have not missed a podcast since 2008. I love doing my podcast. I've got to be out of here by Tuesday at 2:00. That is it. Because I will not make my podcast for the Wednesday podcast. I'll come out here by 2:00 on Tuesday. She's like, okay, I will try to get you out of here by Tuesday at 2:00. If you can do X, Y, and Z, like eat this, you keep it down, you have this kind of blood work and blah, blah, blah. I was like, I'll do whatever. I was like, I'm good. So she's like, and I'll put you first on my rounds on the floor that day. I was like, I love you. Like, that's perfect. Like, we're working together. You're the best doctor in the world. This is Dr. Jody. I'm like, yes. And so the first thing that morning, like I called as soon as the hospital cafeteria thing opened up, I got my little sheet. I ordered the food that was like, had to show that I was eating from this kind of a menu. I ordered a biscuit, a pancake, and a egg, ate it. I knew it was fine. Like, so I ate it, showed her, boom, or showed the nurse, like, look, I ate all that. I mean, eating, that's my jam. I'll always win when it comes to eating. Then I immediately put on my regular clothes, my sweats and stuff that I had on when I came in. And I started just walking laps around the floor, like past the nurse's station. So I looked like I was getting ready to leave. Like I looked like I was getting ready to escape, just so I could remind them that I was healthy and that I was ready to go. And they're like, oh, you look pretty good. I'm like, yeah, I feel pretty good. And the third time past the nurse's station, Dr. Jody was there. She's like, oh yeah, I want to tell you, we're going to discharge you here in the next hour. I was like, it worked. She saw me. Let's go. And I got to go. So I got to go like at, I don't know, like that afternoon, pretty early. So we made the podcast and all was good. So shout out to Dr. Jody. So that's my story of all the craziness of this past week and what's coming. So, stick with me. We'll keep the shows coming, and we'll hopefully have a big football game. Now this Saturday at the football game, that's what I thought was going to be the biggest challenge, because on top of this, of course, Pam has a broken ankle, clean break of the ankle. We have to go to Mizzou. Our football in a football game, college football game, if you're not familiar with this, like Mohawk, he's tuned in over in Scotland. Our parking pass is for a parking lot that is about 3/4 of a mile from the stadium. And that's the closest we can get to park. So I'm going to have to swing by the stadium and kind of drop Pam off right at the stadium and just like let her stand there, go drive our car to the lot, park it on the lot, walk back the 3/4 of a mile, meet her, and then walk into the stadium. And then it's like about 50 or 75 steps. It's really steep steps too, straight down to our seats. And she's got this big boot that almost goes all the way up to her knee. She's a tough cookie. She was there the whole time I was at the hospital. She was getting me sodas from the gas station. She's been selling t-shirts at all the schools, even with this broken foot for homecoming. She is just nonstop, even with a broken foot. So she'll make it, but it's just going to be a challenge even on Saturday, but it'll be worth it with the Alabama football game. So we're going to make the best of this. And I appreciate y'all reaching out and being so kind with all this and kind with just, you're always kind. That's the one thing I just want to say. You guys are always so supportive of everything we do. And thanks for keeping us going here on the show through Patreon. Because I'll tell you what, we sure need it. The Patreon helps us more than you know. So thank you so much for that. All right, let's hit the feedback from the show, the last show. Not last week's show, but the last show. And it was about how when you have the right mindset, you're relaxed. Sometimes you perform at your best. And it was, Mallory's squad went out to Kansas City, won regionals. And the girls kept, like 2 or 3 different girls said, I wasn't nervous this time, which is weird because they're always like freak shows. They're always so nervous and we always kind of collapse. We always come in second or third. They won this time. And for once, they were not freaked out about being nervous. So they performed at their best when they were not worried or freak shows before the performance. And I think there's something to be said for that. Dennis said, "Hey, Mike, I'm going out on a limb and guess you're talking about your trip to the hospital that you posted on the Discord server. I'm hoping by now that you have recovered from whatever your issue was. It's been quite a few weeks for you and Pam. Hope you both I hope you both recover quickly. And please don't worry about us in the Patreon until you are better. Hang in there." See, thank you so much. But I'm always going to try to give you a show every week if possible, no matter what. And I love you guys because you know what? You guys are supporting me financially, keeping the show going, and I want to give you your money's worth. I promise you, because it's my end of the bargain, and I want to keep that up for you guys. I always want to give you your money's worth. It's just how it is. My good friend, thank you, Dennis, so very much. My good friend Paul, Mike, love when you talked about how loose and carefree the cheer squad was when heading to Kansas City to compete and how well they did. Athletes perform their best when they're confident in their ability and relaxed in their mind, right? It seems to be fear that creeps in, but fear of what? Of a mistake, of looking foolish? Sometimes it's fear of being great. I used to tell my children and all the kids I coached DFG, don't fear greatness. Sometimes a young athlete is on the cusp of the next level, and because it's unfamiliar, they fear it and stop themselves. Don't let fear of any kind get in the way. Be confident in your prep, have fun, and go get it. It reminds me of a story I heard about what Russell Wilson's dad used to tell him. His dad would say, "Someone is going to be a star today. Throw 3 touchdowns, including a game winner. Make no mistakes and be the best player on the field. Why not you?" Love that story. Congratulations to Mallory and her team. I love that. DFG, don't fear greatness. I read something yesterday about Michael Jordan, and it was an interview where they said, "Do you ever get nervous before games?" And he said, I don't. He said, "I don't because I prepare." He said, I prepare to the best of my ability, and I know that I've done everything I can before the game, so I'm ready. So there's nothing to be nervous about because I've put in the work. I feel like I have outworked everybody on that court. And if you know that your preparation has meant the moment, you're going to be fine. And I think that's going to kind of get into, and I'm not in any ways a Michael Jordan or an elite athlete. I am a Joe Schmo in the Midwest, but I've always wanted to be. And I think that might be one of my problems. So we'll talk about that here in just a couple seconds. Trisha has our final piece of feedback. And guys, I love your feedback, and you guys consistently give me feedback, you three. And I appreciate you more than you even know. Trisha up in Wisconsin says, "My husband can relate as a girl dad. He and kiddo took a daddy-daughter trip and both forgot to pack her underwear. He felt real awkward standing in Target buying girls' underpants." Been there. You do what you got to do when you're a girl dad. You do anything for them. That's what you do. She says, "As a family, we love to travel and we tend to make opportunities for ourselves. Can't say it's anything stupendous, but I do get interviewed in Toronto. But I did get interviewed in Toronto last summer when the new Maple Leafs captain was announced. They were looking for fan responses. Then there was the time we filled a suitcase with new school supplies and donated them to the one-room schoolhouse outside of Golfito, Costa Rica. Recently, I received the One Award at work for being an exceptional healthcare employee. I had no clue I had been nominated, let alone won. Funniest part was I missed the ceremony because I was vacationing in Walt Disney World." Well, congratulations on that, Trisha. I could totally see how you'd win that because you're always giving to others. You do this trivia contest every day in the Discord that brings joy to all of us, even though I half the time don't get them because I don't know the movies, but I enjoy watching everybody. But yes, I can see that you're great at what you do because you're great at just about everything I've seen you do. And I'm sure that your fellow workers appreciate you being a part of your team because I'm sure you lead by example and just bring a lot to your team. So that is awesome to hear. I don't know who the captain was of the Leafs. That's so cool. Thank you for the feedback. If you have feedback for this show or any other show, it is patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast. Please, please, please leave feedback for next week's show. All right, my quick story that I wanted to share for this week. I called the show "Funny How You Get What You Need." I didn't need any of this to happen, right? I didn't need any of this to happen. I don't ever want to go to the hospital. I don't ever want to. It's weird because it's the exact same. It's like an instant replay of what happened to me at Easter. I mean, I had the exact same things, symptoms, the night, in the middle of the night, super bad stomach pains, end up on the floor in the bathroom, nauseous, like tell Pam I'm dying, rush to the ER. Boom, next thing I know, they're sticking the thing up my nose. Boom, next thing I know, I'm being admitted. Boom, you gotta, you're getting a CT scan. You got a small intestine blockage. I mean, it's exactly the same time. I mean, it was exactly a carbon copy. April, what happened just now, and it stayed the exact same amount of time. It's crazy. It was, I don't know, it was the exact same carbon copy thing. So, but the thing is, this time as I was up there, I had a nurse and her name was Jamie. And she was about the same age as is Pam and I. Like, you could tell we talked a lot. I think she was like in her early 50s, and I'm 51, Pam's 52. And she was a talker. Like, she said she'd been a nurse for 31 years. And she would share a lot about her story. And she lived in the area that we lived in, because the hospital is down, right by our house. We live about 5 minutes from the hospital. And come to find out, well, first of all, she saw that I was wearing an Apple Watch, and she's like, "Oh, so how you like your watch?" I'm like, "Yeah, I like my watch, because I got a new version this past time, because my old one, the battery was dying." And she had the same one. We were like talking back and forth, and I told her, I do like to run. That's how I try to stay in shape. And she's also very she says, "I don't like to run," but she's very active. She likes to hike and kayak, and she's a very fit person, a very active person. And so we talked about that. Of course, I was feeling terrible, but she was trying to, cheer me up, right? Because I was like, just I can't even hardly get out to go to the bathroom at this point. And the thing was, she was also, of course, she's not like a radiologist or anything, but she would like look at my x-rays and show them to me in the scans on the screen. And I don't know if this is legal or not, but it probably is. She was showing me like the pictures they took, the CT scans, the x-rays, like on the computer screen in the room, and the computer in the room, and show me like, this is what you got going on. This is what it looked like in April. This is what it looks like now. Pretty similar. This is what it should look like, on a normal one. This is what it looked like on discharge. And and she says, "This is where it is right here. Like, look, that's not right. Like, that shouldn't be like this." And she was explaining things. And she told me, so she also shared with me that she was a cancer survivor, and that she had colorectal cancer or colon cancer. And she told me that, you know, she really helped me put things in perspective. And I was telling her, I love to run. I said, I love to run. I said, because here's the thing. I was telling her how, I run the Disney races, and how we have our podcast running team, and how I love being a part of that team. I said, it's hard being a part of this team though, because we're spread out all around the world. We're not like a running club, say, like in St. Louis, we have a running club called Feet Fleet. We have one here in St. Charles, right by my house. But everybody runs together, on like a certain night of the week, and then they go, they'll go to like a brewery and have beers or whatever. We don't have that, because everybody's, some people are in New Hampshire, some people are in Florida, some people are in Texas, some people are in Australia, some people are in Japan, which is amazing that we have so many folks, and we all, it's virtual, and then we get together for the races, and all over the country, different races, and that's great. But I wish we could do that weekly. I told her, I was like, I wish there was a way that we could, really have fellowship in person together. That would be so amazing. I said, because I'm such a like team person. Like I love to I love when I used to coach Pages squads. I love to coach. I love relationships. I love the fact that I get to meet friends and have relationships. And I love our virtual relationships. This is the best. This is the best part about the podcast. Let me tell you that. The reason this podcast is still going in 2025 from 2008 is the relationships. It's the friends I've made, and how we have a community. If it wasn't for the community, this thing would have not been going a long time ago. It's because I love the friends that I have here. You guys are all friends, and we have something so special. But she asked me about the running, and I said, the running is it's a weird thing. Like, I used to be an athlete, in high school. I played baseball, I played basketball. I played football a little bit. I got out of that because my dad didn't want me to get hurt for baseball, because he thought I was going to go to the pros. He's like, "Don't get smoked." But then after high school, I gave up baseball to try to make speed skating. It looked like for a brief second in the early 90s that speed skating could be an Olympic sport. And I kind of hedged my bets. One thing I always had a dream to do was to represent the United States in the Olympics. Even more than playing professional baseball, I wanted to be an Olympian. And there was a hot minute there in the early 90s where it looked like speed skating, inline speed skating, would be accepted as an Olympic sport. And I wanted to be on that first inline speed skating team. Because if you think about it, if you really want to make it to the Olympics, one of the easiest ways to get in is to get into the very first team for the very first time that a sport is introduced. Because it's going to be the least amount of the pool is going to be the smallest when you get in for the first like time the sport's introduced. And so, I was in the elite level at that point in the early 90s, like in the mid to early 90s. So I gave up playing baseball to go all in on speed skating and traveled the country and, and so forth and skated. I mean, there were 3 nights a week where I practiced twice a night. I practiced at 4 to 5:30 at one facility. Then we practiced 9 to 10:30 at another facility that was 2 hours. It was 45 minutes away. And so, and you'd work in between those, but it was intense. And you would skate, oh God, I can't remember how many miles and miles because it was like in kilometers how you measured it in speed skating. But I mean, it was so intense on the training. And this was, in the 90s in college. And so I was just used to that kind of workload. I love the intense training because it was almost like Olympic training. Like it was hard and it was nonstop. You only took 2 weeks off in the summer. That was it. And even in the 2 weeks off, I didn't take it off. Like I did other stuff. And then after that, after I got out of speed skating, I started playing hockey, roller hockey, because I kind of got into that at the same time I was speed skating, and I made it to a team that got to the national level in roller hockey, and I enjoyed that. But then like once I got married and had Mallory, I stopped kind of doing everything. And I gained a bunch of weight and I got sedentary and I was like, oof, I can't do this. And that's when I got back into running with the Lizards. When I heard Mike Bankhead's story about how he overcame cancer and how he was running with Team All Ears, I got so inspired. I got so fired up. I was like, I got to do this. And my problem is that when I do something, I go all in. I mean, it's like with this podcast, right? Most podcasts go one day a week or, a couple shows a month or something like that. I love this podcast so much that I can't do it just one day a week. Like during COVID, we had to do a show every day for months because I loved it. Because I didn't want people being isolated. I knew that there were folks that were like locked into their apartments in New York or wherever it was, and they were by themselves. I was lucky because I had Paige, I had Mallory, I had Pam here in my house. I had companionship. But in case we didn't, I wanted to have a check-in every night where we could call in and talk about things, not Disney, but life, so that everybody had a place to go. And that was important. But if I'm doing something, I'm not doing it 78% of the way. And that's how I've taken running. With my running, I do run or walk every single day. And the thing is, so many people have told me, like, just chill out. Like, you're going to be okay. Not everybody walks 20 miles a day. Not everybody runs, 20 miles a day or has to run a half marathon 4 or 5 days a week. In my brain, I know that. And so when I was laying there in the bed, I was talking to Jamie and she was talking to me, and she was telling me that she was in the same situation in her 30s when she found out she had cancer. And she said she was exactly like that. And she says this isn't why she got cancer. She said, but she remembers like she was training her body to the point where her body could not keep up. She thought that she was doing harm to her body because she thought she was keeping herself in such elite shape because she was she was so into being active, like endurance sports, that she remembers like just collapsing one day. And she went to the doctor because she didn't feel well the next week. And that's when she found out she had cancer. She said, no correlation. She said, but her body told her, you have to stop. You have to stop. And she said, Mike, she said, I don't know you. I just met you yesterday. She said, but maybe your body is telling you, you don't have to stop, but you got to knock it off. Like you got to, maybe this is too much. Now, Pam has told me this. I will give you this. My wife has told me this for the past like 3 or 4 years. Scott's told me this. Many people have told me this. And I'll tell you what, I am the biggest knucklehead, hardhead idiot in the world. Because again, in my mind, and I'm being very, you know, honest with because you guys are like the core audience here. I'm being very honest with you. Um, I am very hard-headed. When I go into something, I don't do it halfway. Like I'm not going to even start if I don't think I'm going to do it full out, I won't even do it because it's not worth it. But if I do it, I'm doing it all the way. It is really hard for me to say, yeah, I'm just going to do this halfway and be average. And if I look at like running sometimes or just shorter distances, I see that is not giving my best. And so I am going to have to realize that because there's what they told me was, and this is what the surgeon told me. I mean, this is like the real people. They said that the reason that thickening is happening in the small intestine, one of the reasons that can happen is because of repeated traumatic pounding of the abdomen because it kills the blood flow. And so, you can run, but they say that like the amount of miles that I've put on every single day that it could have killed the blood flow right there and that could have killed that part of the small intestine. So that is kind of shocking. Um so in the days and weeks to come, I have to think about that. Like I'm going to totally be thinking about like do I change especially after marathon weekend and so forth because more important than running is my family and my friends and enjoying the rest of my life. But it's hard when you want to give 100% to something because I've always given 100% to something. I don't want to stop. But I will say, Jamie was sweet to be honest with that and open up. I mean, nurses are angels. I posted that somewhere because she didn't have to give that conversation. She didn't have to open up about her background, but she did. And she was so funny because she talked about, I talked about how much I love food and I like to eat, and that's why I run and it keeps me evened out because I tend to overindulge in desserts and stuff like that. She said, "Well, our cafeteria has the very best dessert." And she came in like the next morning with a one order of the best dessert that they have down at the cafeteria, and it just said "Happy eating" with a smile, Jamie on it, and she gave it to my wife because I couldn't eat it because I was on clear liquids. But she gave it to Pam, and she says, "This is motivation for Mike. If he can get out of here in time to eat this, I didn't." But it looks so good. I took a picture of it and I'll post it in the Patreon. But yeah, uh, when somebody that is outside of your circle tells you that has been through the ringer, she's been through cancer, but has been in a similar situation, it kind of wakes you up, right? She has no horse in the race. She doesn't care if Mike makes it or not. She doesn't care if I'm sick or not. I mean, she's a nurse, so I guess she cares about all of her patients. Just like when I was a teacher, I loved all my students. I wanted every one of them to succeed. I would definitely had a horse in the race for every one of my kids. And I guess she's that way with her patients. I mean, but she only knew me for 6 hours at that point. I was just a guy in a bed. But I don't know if you've ever been in that situation where you have to make a tough call because I'm still struggling, I'll be honest, because I just want to give my best. Like I don't it's hard to not go all the way. It is really hard to not go all the way for me. And if you want to do the dopey challenge, you have to put in the work. That scares me because the last thing I want to do is not be ready for the dopey challenge. And it's like we talked about earlier, right? Preparation has to be there. Like you should never go to a starting line without being fully prepared. And I haven't been nervous about dopey over the last 5 years because I'm always prepared. Like I know that I've put in the miles. I know that I've put in plenty of miles to be ready for that day when that Sunday hits. Now I'm a little nervous about like the conditions and how it's going to go. Trust me there. I don't like running the 26. It does give me a little blah in the stomach, but I know that I've put in the work. I know I can't do more than I've done. So we'll see. I just want to talk to you guys about that. So has anybody ever come into your path like that? Because, Jamie, the nurse there really kind of opened up. Boom. She was very direct. She's like, well, what do you want? Like, Do you just want to pound your intestines into oblivion and just keep pounding those miles? She goes, you could do that. She goes, you could also not have an intestine, which is very important. She goes, you need that to live. You need that to eat. You need that to digest. She goes, but yeah, but you could have all these miles. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? And I mean, she was as blunt as it could be. I'm like, wow, that was funny. She's like, just honest. She's like, you won't be running much if you can't eat, you can't, do anything else. You can't digest your food. I'm like, well, that's a good point. She goes, but you could still run, just cut back and your intestine will be better. I'm like, well, that's a good point too. So I don't know, like his somebody come into your life there totally unexpectedly and surprised you because Nurse Jamie did for me. And I'll be, you know, I am so far from being a person that's good at these kind of things. I struggle and, I'm going to be struggling with this. So help me with it. Because, I am planning on getting on the treadmill tomorrow morning and I'm going to get a run in, but I'm not going to run on Saturday. And I usually run on Fridays and Saturdays, back to back halves. That's my thing. But I am going to try to modify it a little bit and try to be smarter because I want to be a better person. But change is hard and I'm going to try. But just want to put that out there. That's where I am. And Mike in the Midwest is always going to be an honest show. And that's where I've been. That's where I am. And the journey will continue. So this is Sunday show a little bit early because Sunday I'll be exhausted from going to Mizzou and the football game late Friday night and all the work I'll have. But I just wanted to not miss it and wanted to check in with you guys and let you know where we are. So I hope you're having a great week. Thanks for your love and your patience and everything over the past week, guys. I missed you, and I'm glad we're back together. And we'll get back on track. We're back on track. We'll have a live call-in show Sunday night. So give me a call on Sunday night. I'd really appreciate it with Scotty G. So until then, you guys, you stay safe, you stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon. All right, I'll see you guys later.